We've had some fantastic boxing stars over the years, and we're lucky to see so many modern-day superstars too. Devin Haney and George Kambosos Jr. are certain stars that have a lot to prove, and fans simply can't get enough. In the build-up to potential, one of the best matches in lightweight boxing history with so much on the line. Hearn, we wouldn't have agreed to Kambosos' rematch in Australia on Devin's behalf. Things are rarely straightforward in the world of boxing, with so many different parties involved in every matchup. Social media has given us an insight into how things work, and that helps us understand how some matches happen, some don't, and what are the driving forces behind them. Devin Haney, the 23-year-old WBC lightweight title holder, is 27-0, and he's gearing up for the task of taking on George Kambosos Jr., the 28-year-old Australian. This won't be an easy task for Haney, as Kambosos Jr. is the current holder of WBA, IBF, WBO, and the Ring lightweight titles. While everyone wanted to see this matchup, and it's safe to say that both of them also wanted it, it was hardly a straightforward deal to make it happen. Behind the scenes on Haney versus Kambosos, a few contractual holdups weren't going to stop Haney from doing that. It's always good to see motivated youngsters looking to dominate from the get-go. This is exactly what he's done by unofficially agreeing to a historic match against Kambosos Jr. at Marvel Stadium, Melbourne, Australia. It will be a fight that settles who's the undisputed lightweight boxing champion, and Haney has claimed that he has accepted lesser money to make the fight happen. Haney's as motivated as the next best thing, and even changed his promoters, explaining that his team didn't get anything their way, but they didn't argue. As per the settled agreement, Haney will take on the Australian champion in his backyard with the obligation of facing him again in Australia later this year. Haney was promoted by Eddie Hearn, and usually, if you change your promoters, things can get pretty ugly. However, in this case, Eddie Hearn recognizes the potential of Haney and realizes his ambitions, and that's why he still considers him loyal despite Haney's decision of switching to DiBella and Bob Arum. The sticking point for Hearn in the match was agreeing to a rematch in Australia, as Hearn believed the rematch should take place in the US. Hearn's take on Haney versus Kambosos Jr. Eddie Hearn, like most promoters, wanted the best terms for his star boy Devin Haney. He wanted Hearn to be able to defend a rematch on Haney's home turf in the US, where he would have a lot of local support. But Kambosos Jr.'s team wasn't agreeing to this. Hearn knew how badly Haney wanted the fight, and also explained that this was the only fight out there for him, so he could understand the lengths Haney went to finalize the match. This meant that while Haney had appeared on DAZN, and that streaming platform wanted the rights to a rematch in the US, the new platform would be ESPN. This opens up the possibilities for Haney to become an overnight sensation, as Hearn suggests, and allows him to potentially set up a date for matchup versus Lomachenko next year. Of course, he would have to remain at the maximum of 135 pounds for all these fights to take place. Hearn believes Haney will be back after getting those belts, and the duo will link up again. This indicates that Haney holds Hearn in high regard and vice versa, and there isn't any bad blood following Haney's decision. Why was Kambosos Jr. reluctant to a matchup? It would be unfair to suggest that anyone at this level is afraid of their potential opponents. They are all athletes that train to fight at the highest level, and money's always the biggest motivator. Kambosos Jr. was hardly reluctant to take on Haney. The problem actually stemmed from the Russian invasion of Ukraine, which changed a lot of things in the boxing world. Ukrainian national Vasily Lomachenko's former champion in 3 weight classes, and even at 34 years of age, remains the man to beat. Before the invasion of Ukraine, Lomachenko was poised to take on Kambosos Jr. This is why, for Kambosos Jr., the fight versus Haney doesn't hold as much appeal as the one versus Lomachenko did, as he has more to lose in that one. It was reported by some media outlets that Kambosos Jr. was looking for the best possible option, and after the Ukraine war, Haney emerged as the best suitor. Haney called out Kambosos Jr. a while ago for not accepting the fight, and asked why the cold feet all of a sudden. Thankfully for the fans, this only adds to the buildup, as eventually there was a breakthrough in negotiations and the fight was agreed. Although, as per Haney's representatives and Haney himself, they did agree to much less money and conditions to finalize the fight and ensure it goes ahead. The offer is well below, claimed Hearn, as he wasn't impressed with the money on offer. This was later confirmed by Haney as well. Money was never going to be an issue for Haney, as he has enough motivation and reasons for taking on Kambosos Jr., despite the home support that will be rearing Kambosos Jr. on. Haney has put to bed any possible excuses and said, "Kambosos has the rest of my belts." Oof, it's getting spicier. Haney is chasing greatness. Devin Haney once said that he's chasing greatness, and that's been pretty evident from his recent interviews. Haney will stop at nothing to ensure he becomes the undisputed champion and lands that ESPN pay-per-view fight versus Vasily Lomachenko next year. That has been his main goal for a long time, as he was also involved in a controversial statement in April 2020 where he said he would never lose to a white boy. As expected, his comments came under some fire, and he explains that he wasn't anti-white and wanted to become a role model. Haney has been perfect so far in his career. He has managed 15 wins by knockout, and that makes him an exciting prospect for fans as well. He also has a lot of respect for Kambosos Jr. and recognizes the challenge he will be up against in early June. However, he backs himself to win, as he believes he has a lot of different styles in his his locker, and he can win the fight that promises so much. His speed and his boxing IQ mixed with his elite defensive play makes him a nightmare for opponents. What can we expect from the showdown? We believe it's foolish to call someone the favorite for these matches. Especially in boxing, it doesn't matter how good anyone is, there's always one good punch away from a potential knockout. A concentration, a lapse in momentum, anything can bring about a defeat within split seconds. All that being said, it's important to assess the two champions who have a lot to prove. For Kambosos, this isn't exactly the perfect game because Haney's a wizard when it comes to defense. It helped to have so much support from his home crowd, but it also allows Haney to set up shop and see out the early attack from Ferocious. That being said, Haney has a lot of incentive to go offensive because this is his moment to become a crowd pleaser and earn support down under. Kambosos also called out Haney by comparing him to a little dog that is full of energy behind the closed gate, but questioned Haney's bark and energy when the gate is open. The hype's justified and the hype's huge, but the fighters will promote the fight in the next couple of months and we will get to know more about what we can expect. From what we've gathered so far, it seems like the fight will be a Haney defense versus Kambosos Jr. attack. Haney explained in the build-up that it doesn't matter how fast someone is if they're swinging at the air. That isn't something the fans would want to see, but let's not forget that the 23-year-old American has 15 wins by knockout. Although for sake of having an X factor, Haney has already pulled up with some mental moves. He said that Kambosos Jr. will face something totally different. Is it a bluff? Is it a new strategy? To be honest, we can't rule out anything because Haney does have a few tricks up his sleeve, but thankfully, we don't have to worry about it. Joel Diaz picks his winner. While most people remain undecided, Joel Diaz, the former professional boxer who belongs to a family full of boxers, picked Haney to come out victorious in June. He surely knows what he's talking about, so this is a brave call considering both the players are unbeaten and the match will be taking place in Kambosos' backyard. Although he did say that the fight is a 50-50 and he believes that Haney, because of his defensive skills and technical ability, will prevail. Neck on the line. Joel, that's daring. That's a wrap for this video. Do you have any questions about the Haney versus Kambosos fight? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.